Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We will wait a few seconds while other folks are joining us. We're going to have a big group today, so let's just wait about 20 more seconds and we'll get started. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, again. Welcome to All Creation Gives God Praise, an Earth Day webinar. This webinar is going to focus on this year's Earth Day celebration and specifically the issues of biodiversity and protecting endangered species. I'm Paz Artaza-Regan. I'm the program manager at Catholic Climate Covenant, and I will be moderating today's conversation. As always, we start with a moment of prayer. This prayer is part of the Covenant's 2019 Earth Day program, which we'll be talking about later in the hour. Let us quiet ourselves and remember that we are always in the presence of God. Lord of creation, maker of heaven and earth, good provider, today we come before you in grief, in shame, to lament the loss of beautiful creatures. We grieve the more than 1 in 4 flowering plants, the 1 in 5 mammals, the 1 in 3 amphibians, and the 1 in 8 birds that are vulnerable to being wiped out completely. We acknowledge that we play a part in this dying by our carelessness, ignorance, and indifference. Forgive us our part in the death of healthy ecosystems and the resulting extinction of your creatures. Refresh our love for all you have made. Renew our resolve to advocate, fight, and nurture and defend our fellow creatures. Thank you for those who care for the earth, the gardeners, the activists, the scientists, the zoologists. Sustain them and protect their hearts as they strive and grieve. We thank you for the magnificent world which you have bestowed upon us. We thank you that you can do more than all we ask or imagine, and so we ask for your help. Restrain human evil, energize us for service, fill us with courage and hope. May your world ever be very, very good. Amen. Some important housekeeping items before we get started. The video is being recorded, and we will be sending a link to the recording within the next couple of days. There'll be a Q&A session after all the presentations, and we ask that you submit your questions by writing them in the question box in your control panel. You will see it in the, usually it's on the right side of your screen. You may wish to indicate who the question is directed to when you submit your question. If you have audio issues, it's most likely due to Wi-Fi connections. You can try connecting via phone for better audio. GoToWebinar gives you that option to switch to phone. Just click on the audio tab in the control panel, and it will give you directions for using your phone for audio. Today we are pleased to be joined by 2 extraordinary presenters, Mary Placide and Helen Rose from the Earth Day Network. They will be presenting on the Earth Day Network's 2019 Earth Day campaign, Protect Our Species, and on how the faith community can participate in this campaign. Let me give you a little bit of introduction to our presenters. Macy Placide joined Earth Day Network in 2019 and serves as the Protect Our Species campaign manager. In this role, Macy leads in policy development, research, and messaging to build awareness, understanding, and action to protect species at home and around the world. Prior to joining Earth Day Network, and by the way, she's very new to Earth Day Network, so I am more than pleased that she said yes to presenting to us today. She held positions with the U.S. Senate and several conservation organizations. Her passion to protect the voiceless takes on many forms, including volunteering at animal shelters, as well as research about the demand for shark fins. She holds a master's degree in global environmental policy from American University and a bachelor's degree in international studies from the University of Wyoming. Following Macy will be Helen Rose. Helen is Earth Day Network's religious outreach coordinator, where she's helping to build, expand, and support Earth Day Network's global network of faith-based organizations. She's a graduate of George Mason University's New Century College and holds a master's in education and a graduate certificate in applied behavior analysis. She's an active member of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston, Virginia, where she co-chairs their Racial Justice Task Force. Welcome, Macy and Helen. And Macy, you're getting started first, so go ahead.
All right, thank you. Paz, thank you for the lovely introduction and also the beautiful prayer at the beginning. I found that to be very motivational and inspiring. So as Paz mentioned, my name is Macy Placide. I am the Protect Our Species campaign manager at Earth Day Network, and I'm pleased to be before you to present on our Protect Our Species campaign and what's happening and the crisis we're currently facing here on Earth. So to begin with the slide here, I wanted to give you a bit of background as to the particular poster that was chosen this year for our year's theme, and the photographer who was generous enough to donate this image to us. We at Earth Day Network chose the giraffe because we wanted to visually represent our campaign for its iconic and singular beauty and the many critical threats to its survival. The poster features Brad Wilson's photograph of a giraffe, which is part of his Affinity Animal series, which includes threatened and endangered species. And one of the reasons why we wanted to highlight this particular animal is because giraffe populations have declined from 155,000 since 1985 to under 100,000 in 2018. And currently there is no international treaty to protect giraffes, and the U.S. is the #1 importer of giraffe trophies and parts. And there are a number of factors that contribute to the giraffe's decline, which include habitat loss, civil unrest, illegal poaching and hunting, and climate change, which collectively contribute to the decline in giraffe populations. So we're grateful to Brad Wilson again for joining our cause by donating this powerful photograph. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Helen to present the next slide.
Thank you, Macy. The photo on the left is from the first Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970, when 20 million Americans took to the streets, parks, and auditoriums to demonstrate for a healthy, sustainable environment in massive coast-to-coast rallies. Thousands of college and university students organized protests against the deterioration of the environment. Groups that had been fighting against oil spills, polluting factories and power plants, raw sewage, toxic dumps, pesticides, freeways, the loss of wilderness, and the extinction of wildlife, suddenly realized they shared common values. Earth Day 1970 achieved a rare political alignment, enlisting support from Republicans and Democrats, rich and poor, urban and rural, and business and labor leaders. By the end of that year, the first Earth Day had led to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Endangered Species Acts. Next slide, please.
So again, as I mentioned, this year's campaign theme is Protect Our Species. And one of the large questions that I was tasked with answering is, why has Earth Day Network chosen Protect Our Species as the theme of this year's campaign? You know, and it stems from questions such as, what is happening on Earth and what are the circumstances and challenges facing species on the planet? Well, today, a devastating mass extinction event is taking place. It's the 6th of its kind in Earth's history. And unlike past mass extinctions caused by events like asteroid strikes, volcanic eruptions, and natural climate shifts, the current crisis we are facing is almost entirely caused by us, humans. In fact, 99% of currently threatened species are at risk from human activities, primarily those driving habitat loss, introduction of exotic species, and global warming. We have upset the balance of nature, and as a result, the world is facing the greatest rate of extinction since we lost the dinosaurs more than 60 million years ago. Next slide, please. So with that being said, what are the current threats facing species and their survival? Habitat loss and degradation affect 89% of all threatened birds, 83% of mammals, and 91% of threatened plants. Overexploitation, which includes harvesting and the trade in exotic animals and pets, is a major threat to mammals, affecting 33% of threatened species. For birds, overexploitation and invasive alien species both affect about 30% of threatened species. When we look at amphibians, for example, 29% of species are affected by pollution, including climate change, and 17% by disease. The interaction between disease and extreme climate events, such as drought, is also a leading theory behind widespread amphibian declines. If we take a look at what's happening beneath the water for marine species, overexploitation is presently the greatest threat, followed by habitat loss. Incidental death in fisheries affects seabirds, marine mammals, and others. And habitat loss is likely to be the most severe threat to freshwater species, followed by pollution and invasive species. Next slide, please. So with that overview of the current threats, we have been called to a moment in time called the sixth mass extinction. And you can take a look at the numbers presented here, and you can see the dramatic effects that are happening across our world. And one of the questions is, why does this matter? Why does biodiversity loss and extinction matter? Well, the variety of species and their habitats, they play an important role in ecosystem function and in many, many services ecosystems provide. The escalating biodiversity loss has widespread implications for both human and environmental security. In addition to that, the monetary value of goods and services provided by ecosystems is estimated to amount to some $33 trillion per year. This is nearly twice the global production resulting from human activities. Furthermore, an estimated 50 to 70,000 plant species are used in traditional and modern medicine worldwide. About 100 million metric tons of aquatic organisms that include fish, mollusks, and crustaceans are taken from the wild every year, and they represent a vital contribution to world food security. Also, you consider meat from wild animals, they also form a critical contribution to food sources and livelihoods in many countries with high levels of poverty and food insecurity. Next slide, please. So with all that I've mentioned about the value of species to the ecosystem and to us, it can sometimes seem easy to forget that these species also have an intrinsic value, purely by virtue of being alive. And every species on Earth is simply trying to survive and thrive on this planet, humans included. So by what metric does any living thing have any more or less right to accomplish these goals than any other? If we assume that every living human has the right to live their life without harm from others, should we not extend this right to all other living things? Well, at Earth Day Network, we believe there is hope and a way to slow the rate of extinction. And many of our declining, threatened, and endangered species can still recover if we work together now to build a united global movement of consumers, voters, educators, scientists, and faith leaders like you to demand immediate action. So at Earth Day Network, we are asking people like you to join our Protect Our Species campaign. And our goals are to educate and raise awareness about the accelerating rate of extinction, achieve major policy victories that protect broad groups of species and their habitats, build and activate a global movement that embraces nature and its values, and also to encourage individual actions such as adopting a plant-based diet and stopping pesticide and herbicide use. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over once again to my colleague, Helen.
Rapid species loss, or the sixth extinction, impacts values core to all faith traditions: stewardship of the environment on which we all depend, caring for the health of our communities, and the responsibility to protect the most vulnerable. This quote from Barbara Allen, author of Animals and Religion and a minister in the Uniting Church in Australia, speaks to the connection between faith and species. She says this: from the principles of ahimsa, nonviolence, in Buddhism and Hinduism, to the laws which relate to avoiding the suffering and pain of living creatures in Judaism, we encounter the interdependence of life. The Jainist notion of reverence for life, the pronouncement in Genesis that it was good, and the Islamic belief that all species are Muslim, allow us to come to a realization or a deeper appreciation that non-human animals have value in our religious traditions as well as in our hearts and homes. We invite you to join communities of faith across the world in using Earth Day 2019's Protect Our Species campaign to respond to the urgent and unprecedented problem created by rapid species extinction and wildlife population loss by deepening your understanding of the issue and engaging your faith community in action. Next slide, please. EDN's Protect Our Species Faith Toolkit takes you through the process of learning, reflecting, and acting. Learning about what is happening to species and their habitats and what is driving the process of extinction. In the reflection section of the toolkit, you will find a collection of faith statements on the environment that can help you connect the issue of species loss with your faith tradition or the faith traditions of others. From the Baha'i faith to Zoroastrianism, faith traditions across the globe have adopted statements about the urgent need to respond to environmental concerns. Faith statements on the environment in the Catholic tradition include the encyclical letter Laudato Si of the Holy Father Francis on care for our common home, which is available in 20 different languages. Next slide, please. Also within the toolkit, we have opportunities for faith communities and individuals to make commitments to protect species. We'd love to know what you and your community are doing this Earth Day. As you might already know, the Catholic Climate Covenant has homily helps to help priests connect the Sunday readings to creation care themes. We encourage faith leaders to learn, reflect, and act by delivering a homily that speaks to the issue of biodiversity and endangered species. Next slide, please. Our toolkit has prayer resources for worship leaders organized by religion to help you incorporate themes related to protecting species into worship. First, you'll find prayers and worship resources from the Catholic Climate Covenant, a great place to start. Earth care prayers from the website Praying Nature, and is described on its website as being inspired by the life and spirituality of St. Francis of Assisi, who believed that flowers, animals, birds, and all created beings praise and glorify God just by being themselves. The National Catholic Reporter published the article entitled, "Where's an Earth Prayer When You Need One?" by Carol Meyer. Meyer starts her article by saying this: "We Catholics should be incorporating prayers for the earth into more of our church life, so I am making it easy for you and providing some. I would encourage you to make up your own too." And she adds, "Feel free to use or adapt these with abandon, with or without the source." Next slide, please. We have discussion starters for teens and adults, and on the screen, you'll see our resource for the Catholic community. We invite participants to read Catholic Ecology's blog post titled Biodiversity Lost, where Dr. Peter Raven, one of the world's leading botanists and advocates of conservation and biodiversity, is interviewed. Dr. Raven says this: "The world's poor will clearly suffer the most because of losses in biodiversity. Their habitats are typically the ones decimated, their agricultural systems deteriorating, the wild plants and animals on which they depend decreases in abundance, and all of the conditions of their lives are changing for reasons over which they have no control." Discussion starters are a way for further reflection on the connection between rapid species extinction and poverty. Another resource is a BBC video entitled "Meet the Nuns Helping to Save a Sacred Species from Extinction." And if you haven't seen this video before, we highly encourage you to do so. The video features a group of Dominican nuns in Pátzcuaro, Mexico, whose efforts to treat asthma, bronchitis, and anemia have led them to also become a critical link in bringing back an endangered salamander species, referred to locally as a choke. Salamanders have become important to scientific research across the globe, in part for their ability to regenerate body parts, including organs and limbs. Although we don't yet know the full power of the choke's healing properties, we do know that without the nuns of the Basilica de Nuestra Senora de la Salud, this knowledge may have been lost. Next slide, please. There are lesson plans for children and youth to engage them in having agency and being part of the solution. Resources include activities for reducing bird collisions, building bee habitats, leading invasive species cleanups, and planting wildflower gardens. The group photo you see on the screen is from an Earth Day 2009 watershed cleanup, where participants collected trash surrounding their church's watershed and built a sculpture with the found items, educating their community about the importance of keeping a healthy watershed for a variety of species. Next slide, please. We have in our toolkit additional ideas to help you think about what you might want to participate in or spearhead this Earth Day, including organizing recycling drives or cleanups. There are a variety of low-cost or free environmental films that can be shown to groups. We have resources on holding plastic-free, vegetarian, or vegan potlucks, hosting tree plantings, planting gardens, or making your faith community a pesticide-free zone. For people living in coastal areas, you might want to consider sponsoring a beach cleanup, and also asking local elected officials to host a global day of conversation on biodiversity. Next slide, please. Lastly, we have additional resources by faith tradition linking faith and the environment. The Take Action link connects you to the Global Climate Movement's website, where you can participate in actions from taking the Laudato Si pledge to downloading the Eco Parish Guide. The Laudato Si on Care for Our Common Home discussion guide is a resource produced by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. 10 Catholic Ways to Celebrate Earth Day is a blog post by Joe Paprocki. Beyond a Throwaway Culture, Reduce Waste, Grow Community is last year's collaborative webinar between Earth Day Network and the Catholic Climate Covenant. Laudato Si on Care for Our Common Home is a parish toolkit on Pope Francis's encyclical produced by the Archdiocese of Washington, and the Laudato Si Animation for Children is a video animation intended to engage children in learning about Pope Francis's encyclical. Next slide, please. And next year is the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day. April 22nd, 2020 is a unique opportunity to create once again a catalytic moment that will advance real solutions and protect our environment for us and future generations. We can all act together in 2020 by joining the largest global mobilization for the environment since 1970, increasing our capacity to achieve our goals and taking bold steps to raise the bar on sustainability for the planet and our communities. And I will pass the slides over to Macy.
Thanks, Helen. So Helen just provided a wonderful array of faith resources that you can access and wonderful ideas on how you can get encouraged for Earth Day and to mobilize and to take action. Some of the additional resources that Earth Day Network provides includes a Earth Day Organizer's Toolkit. And before I move forward with additional toolkits, these are all available on our earthday.org website. So I would encourage you to go to our website and look at the library of resources that we provide for you there. So in addition to the Earth Day Organizers Toolkit, we also have a teach-in toolkit available, which is used to help educate family, friends, coworkers, or other community members about the problems of species loss and solutions. You may also take part in Climate Education Week, starting Monday, April 15th. Put that on your calendars using our Climate Education Week toolkit, which also helps to educate and engage K through 12 students to learn about the problem and take action to protect our species. For anybody who attends college, whether it's students, faculties, and staff at higher education institutions, you can use our Mobilize You toolkits that provide a step-by-step guide to getting your campus ready for Earth Day. If you happen to work with local governments, we also have a Cities and Local Leaders Toolkit available as a resource to engage and educate the community about protecting biodiversity and building support for new initiatives. We also encourage you all today, after listening to this webinar, to sign up to receive up-to-date news about any of our petitions and any other advocacy actions happening with Earth Day Network. In addition, for all of you out there who are social media users, we encourage you to use our 2019 hashtags, hashtag Earth Day 2019 and hashtag Protect Our Species, as well as for Twitter users using our tag at Earth Day Network to allow Earth Day Network to track your messages. And also, please, I encourage you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity alongside Helen to present to you today, and we look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Macy. Before I go to the Catholic Climate Covenants program, you want to talk a little bit about the handout resource that they have available there on their control panel?
Certainly. So we have a resource available for use included with this webinar, which includes the Protect Our Species, What Can You Do handout with 3 simple steps of learn, reflect, and act, as well as some ideas to help your organization take the lead in educating and activating others to protect our species. And that provides a summary of what I just covered for you with our additional resources. And if Helen would like, she could probably briefly better explain the 3-step process of the first hand sheet.
Right, and before you go on, for folks listening, in your control panel, there is a box that says handouts. If you click on that, a PDF will show up that you can instantly download onto your computer, and then you have that resource. I will also be including it in the follow-up email. Go ahead, Helen. Helen, you might be on mute. Okay, I think Helen might be muted. Helen, are you there? Okay, we'll wait for Helen to come back on. At this point, I will move on, and maybe in the Q&A, Helen can start speaking about these issues. Because she did have here additional Earth Day Network resources, and I still believe she's muted, so we will wait. Macy, do you want to talk anything about these resources, or should I just go on and come back to it?
Well, just like I previously mentioned, these resources are all available on our website, earthday.org, and I encourage everybody who's participating, when you have a moment, to take a peek at any of these toolkits that might have relevance to you, whether you want to participate in Climate Education Week, if you're you're an educator, or if you have a daughter or a son or grandchildren. Our education toolkits are wonderful, as well as for anybody who wants to get more involved in, your community with local officials or local governments. And, of course, at the very top, we highly encourage you to download our Protect Our Species Primer and Action Toolkit, since this year is the Protect Our Species campaign. There are a number of wonderful resources that we provide in this document, including ways in which you can help protect our species.
Okay, thanks. And I think Helen is back.
Hi, sorry about that.
No problem.
So I have to also mention that the Catholic Climate Covenant are probably the first people who are getting to look at any of our content for our Faith Leaders Toolkit. It is in the works of being completely finalized. So actually the copy of the PowerPoint that you will have access to really is specific to the Catholic community. So we've kind of pulled out those resources for you. So that might be a good place to start. And we will be updating our website shortly with the full toolkit with our extensive resources.
Thank you, Helen. And to reiterate, everybody will be getting a link to the recording as well as a PDF of the slides with all these links. And I will be sending out the handout as well in the follow-up email. So you will get all this information. Okay, anything else, Helen, Macy, before I go on? And we'll get back to during Q&A in a few minutes.
I think I'm okay.
Okay. Okay, and there you have Macy's and Helen's emails, and you'll get that too tomorrow or Friday, so you can communicate directly. At this point, we will shift a little bit. Hopefully everyone has received the email with the information about the Covenant's 2019 Earth Day program, All Creation Gives God Praise, Protecting Biodiversity in a Time of Climate Change. It is now available and ready for download. I've been told by a few people that they like the fact that this year's program is more contemplative in nature, and that it does ask us to ponder our place in God's creation and our role in keeping it whole. You will find a facilitator program that includes all the instructions and materials to help you or anybody in your community host a 1-hour educational Earth Day program and a printable program guide for participants. The program this year complements, as other years, the Earth Day Network's theme. The title of the program was inspired mostly by Psalm 148. As you know, it says, "Praise the Lord from the earth. You see monsters in all the deeps of the sea. Lightning and hail, snow and thick clouds, storm wind that fulfills his command, mountains and all hills, fruit trees and all cedars, animals wild and tame, creatures that crawl and birds that fly." Also important in the development of this year's program was an exploration into the ethical dimensions of our call to be stewards of all of God's creation. And specifically, we zero in on paragraph 33 in Laudato Si. It is each year sees the disappearance of thousands of plant and animal species which we will never know, which our children will never see, because they have been lost forever. The great majority become extinct for reasons related to human activity. Because of us, thousands of species will no longer give glory to God by their very existence, nor convey their message to us. We have no such right. Going along with that quote from Laudato Si, we also probed this quote from Thomas Berry, a Catholic priest of the Passionist order, who is mostly described by folks as an eco-theologian, although he described himself as an earth scholar or a cosmologist. His quote is, "To wantonly destroy a living species is to forever silence a divine voice." We discuss in the program how we as Catholics must respond to species disappearance. Within the program, you will have prayers, readings, a short 10-minute video, and several suggested activities. Among the activities are to join or create a creation care team in your faith community, whether it's your parish, your school, your religious community. because we believe that that is the best way to get active and involved on creation care and to witness to our faith. You will have also the opportunity to sign the Catholic Climate Declaration, an invitation to sign both as an individual as well as for your Catholic institution to sign, to say that Catholics are still in the Paris Agreement, no matter if our national government is not. And as an extension activity, this activity is longer than what you can do within the 1 hour program, but something that you can do uh, during the next few months. It is a program called the Saint Kateri Habitat Program. It is a program of the Saint Kateri Conservation Center, which offers a faith-based program to inspire Catholic individuals, parishes, schools, religious orders, and others to restore backyards, gardens, farms, parks, vacant lots, forests, grasslands, streams, wetlands, and other Catholic-owned lands, for example, into healthy habitats for both people and wildlife. I really encourage you to look at that program. What makes it different is that they ask that you put a Catholic religious symbol into that restored habitat, whether it be a statue of St. Francis or something else like that, that brings it into a faith-based habitat program. To download the Earth Day program, you can go to this link. Please note, this year Earth Day falls on Easter Monday. Therefore, we're quite cognizant of how difficult it might be to celebrate Earth Day, either during that weekend before, given that it's Holy Week. So we are saying to celebrate Earth Day anytime during the Easter season or on a day of your choosing, whether it's in the Easter season or later in the summer. At this point, we are going to move to our question and answer period of the webinar. And I am going here to go through the question box. I do have a question here for the Earth Day Network. Do you have any posters that can be downloaded for use at an Earth Day fair, for example, at their church? Is that something that you have? We might, in the Covenant, have something that might be helpful. I would have to ask. One of our creation care teams has created something, so we might be able to give that as a resource for others. But does the Earth Day Network have posters?
Yes, we do have posters. They come in a limited edition, and I will have to find out from our staff the process of purchasing and ordering, or if there is a donation attached to the collection of those posters. But that's a good question, and I can get back to whomever asked that question.
Okay. We did have a question about putting up the links to the website pages, and I think we have done that. And as I'll remind folks, a lot of the links are within that handout, and it will also be in your follow-up email. Let me see. I've got the question about how do we celebrate Earth Day because it happens the day after Earth Day. Are there any suggestions for tying into the Catholic liturgy Lent Holy Week? We did not go in that direction because it's very hard during Holy Week to tell priests how to say their homilies. But I do point you out to the homily helps on our website where we do have links for that week's readings to a creation care theme. And I would point you to that resource as a possibility. I will also include that one in the follow-up email. Let me see. Any other questions? Okay. Somebody's telling me here that they have a button that was developed and shared at an interfaith gathering at last week's Climate Reality Convention with a beautiful graphic that says climate care is pro-life. So I might be able to, if Bonita wants to share that, I can share it in the follow-up email. We're being asked if there's common language between the Covenant and Earth Day Network. I don't believe we have common language. We are sharing each other's resources. So I share the Earth Day Network's resources, and I know that the Earth Day Network is sharing ours. I don't think common language is anything, though, that we have except protect species, protect biodiversity. Here we have one. This is an interesting question because it's regarding recycling. I'm not sure that either Macy or Helen, but maybe somebody else at Earth Day Network might be able to send me some info about recycling, encouraging recycling when cities are scaling back recycling programs, especially with China turning back recycling. Does Earth Day Network have any resources on that?
I can answer a little bit into that. Yes, that is a big concern, and I think every city, every municipality is responding to it in different ways. I know in my local neighborhood, things are getting incinerated that traditionally have been recycled. The links that we provided in the faith toolkit are a little bit different in that there are some companies who have been doing kind of some innovative recycling or repurposing of materials, such as doing denim drives, so collecting people's used jeans. And a company, I believe they're in Arizona, collects them, and they're used for insulating homes. So something along those lines where it's not necessarily the plastics, although there are companies that do repurpose plastics. I don't know too much about that, but check out the links within the Faith Toolkit for some of those specific recycling ideas that are a little bit more unique. I think the reduction of the use of items is probably the biggest lesson that we're all having to learn as a country, because we're used to having our goods recycled more easily.
Right. And that'll be a good resource. Yep.
And I would just add to what Helen is saying and echo, Earth Day Network, as was previously mentioned, did a presentation last year on ending plastic pollution. And we still encourage, looking at that campaign on our website. And we have a plastic toolkit and primer, as well as ways to reduce, pollution as well as recycling options. And so we offer a variety of ways in which you can help with the recycling, as was mentioned with China and the trade ban and not taking in any more U.S. trash, and how that's become a problem nationally for us. There are ways in which you can help to reduce that by looking on our website as well.
Thank you. Here's a question. I think it's both Helen and Macy, but maybe more Helen. Will Earth Day Network have a way to let faith communities know about other communities of faith within their geographic area that are participating in the Protect Our Species campaign this year, so that they can connect with each other?
That is a great question. In the past, in Earth Day's history, we have been more focused on collecting or having people report to us and listing and promoting as many events as we possibly can. We found that it was such a large job that we are more relying on social media to kind of help us figure out where all these Earth Day events are happening. But I would be, if you sent an email to me, I would be happy to share with you any people that I've heard of within the faith community who are doing events.
Thanks. Some folks are asking for a logo that can be used so that we can build handouts or flyers that link visually to the Covenant's effort and or Earth Day network. I don't think we've done a logo in conjunction. You might want to just use the cover of our program and then the Earth Day Network's logo. Somebody asked if they should use the language that we're cooperating, and I think the language that I use in the program is that our program complements the Earth Day Network theme. I think that's how we use that kind of language, complementing each other. Do you have any suggestions for logo, for handouts, for Protect Our Species?
So for the Protect Our Species logo, I do know that we do offer a 2019 Earth Day banner and badge on promotional and communication materials. That said, that's only after signing a partnership agreement with Earth Day Network, which allows the release for the use of that logo. And this is primarily focused more towards nonprofit partnerships. For individuals specifically, that would be a question I would have to get back to this individual about.
Okay. And it's always issues with copyrights and things like that.
Right.
Here's a question about, and I think, Macy, you touched upon it, resources regarding how plastic pollution has an effect on loss of species.
So if you look at our Protect Our Species toolkit and primer, that gives you probably the best outline of the decline of species worldwide. Specifically with plastics, as I mentioned before, we have a plastic toolkit and primer. And to go back to speaking about species and plastics, we have a global epidemic with plastic pollution. It was recently announced a whale had washed upon shore and had over 88 pounds of plastic trash found within its remains. And that's just simply unacceptable. And it's an epidemic, and it's impacting wildlife species across the globe. So I would highly encourage you, if you want to learn more, to download our Protect Our Species Faith Leaders Toolkit and our Protect Our Species original toolkit to learn more about that issue.
Right. Thanks. I'm going to bring up this question. If there was one or two things that as individuals we could do on this issue, what would be your suggestion?
Well, Helen, would you like to also answer?
Sure, I can start. I think my response to this is that I think it's hard to do things as individuals. It's a lot easier if you are able to do things within communities. So I think really elevating people's voices who know the issues already, like at the local level, people who are experts in biodiversity, at nature centers, at your parks and recreation departments, just finding common ground there so that you have a group of people to be working with. And then I would say to check out the toolkits that have been provided, and really use those as resources to deepen your knowledge and ways that you can act upon that information.
Yeah. Yes, I think that folks will find a lot of the answers to their questions in the toolkits that you're providing, and also within the Covenants program, educational program. I do think that a lot of these things will be there. I'm not getting a lot of other questions. I do have some folks that are recommending some videos. Somebody who says that a good resource is plasticoceans.org. It's some film. A good movie to a plastic ocean. So I think that might be something people want to look at. So at this point, because we are not seeming to get a lot more questions, I may, for once, we might be stopping a webinar earlier than usual. Folks are quite, I think your presentation was so full of information that you've covered most of the Q&As that they had. So if I do find in the list of questions something that we did not get to, yeah, most people are giving me recommendations for other movies. Yeah, if I do find something, I will respond one-on-one, or I will let Helen or Macy know the question and they will respond as well. So at this point, I really want to give a big thank you to Macy and Helen for joining us today and sharing their expertise. If you need more information, you can write to info@catholicclimatecovenant.org. You should be receiving an email from me either tomorrow or Friday with the follow-up information. So Macy, Helen, thank you. Thank you for being
Thank
with us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who attended today. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.